The next slides that you will see are the slides that present theory. And we've talked a lot about theory, but you're still like, okay, what are these theories? What are they there for? How will I use them? What do they mean? And this is really the core of where we're going to be looking and where we're going to be working for the next several weeks and throughout this whole entire sociology class. So I'm going to talk about these three theories before you really look at them and kind of break them down. It'll be a little easier to do it that way. The first theory that I want to talk about is a theory we call symbolic interactionism. Symbolic interactionism is a theory that we use it to define our roles. We use it to define our values. It's very micro. In other words, I have a belief, and I have value to certain things, and you have value to certain things, and our values may be different. The way that we see the world may be different. If I say the word mom or dad to you, based on your history, you may have very different feelings about mom or dad. If you had a mom that was always there and you guys had a really good relationship, you'll see when we celebrate Mother's Day, you'll just be all, all about celebrating moms or celebrating dads, if you had an extremely good experience there. But, what if you had bad experience? What if you were deserted, or your parents were never there, or, whatever the cause? Uh, when I say mom or dad, you may not be ready to jump up and down and celebrate them in May and June. But that is that that value is symbolic interactionism. I can't look at you and say, "Oh, I know that maybe your dad beat you up a whole lot, but you know, you're not supposed to feel that way about dads." Uh, That is your personal belief. That is your interpretation, and that's the way that you see the value of the symbol with that word that represents dad or mom or love or marriage. Um, the thing about symbolic interactionism is it's not always rational. It does not always make sense. Uh, but it is so powerful. It is extremely powerful. A perfect example of symbolic interactionism has to do with on my wall in my classroom. There's a clock, just plain old clock hanging up. I think I bought it at like Dollar General, paid $5-8 for it, but I needed that clock to tell time, and so it's hanging up there telling time. And then I have another timepiece. It's a timepiece I wear all the time, right here. I'm taking it off. This timepiece right here. No matter whenever I look at this timepiece, it says that it's 5 after 6. If I want it to be a different time, I just kind of, reset it, unplug the little thing, and I can reset it, and it can be whatever time I need it to be. Pay attention to this, because we'll talk about this timepiece and the other timepiece in just a minute. And you'll understand the difference with symbolic interactionism and exactly how powerful it is. So let's go to functionalism and compare these two for just a moment. All right, functionalism is the next slide that you look at. Functionalism talks about how parts of society fit together, how well they fit together, and the function that they serve when they fit together. Um, and so when we talk about society, we talk about society having all different parts. And those are the institutions: the institution of marriage and family, the institution of religion, the institution of education, the institution of government, the institution of economics. And all of these fit together to form the foundation of what we know as society. So those are the parts. The structure or how they fit together, and then there's the function. Do they accomplish what they need to accomplish with society? So let's go back to our clocks. That clock on the wall has a function on the wall in my classroom. It has a function. It is to let the students know when they're there on time, and it is to let the students know when it's time to leave class, how much time they have. So its structure is that it has just hundreds of little bitty. If you've ever taken a clock apart, I don't care how expensive or how inexpensive a clock is, it has all of these little wheels and little bitty screws, and all of them fit together. That's the structure of this clock, and it fits together, and that clock works to provide an accurate function. All right, so what happens if the clock falls and one of those little wheels breaks in there? The clock then stops providing accurate time. And when it stops providing accurate time, it's no longer of any use to me. So I'll throw it away, and I'll go down to Dollar General and buy another one, and I'll put it on the wall, and there again we will have function. It will have its structure, and its structure will work, and then it will function, and it will do the task that it's there to do. All right, let's go back to my wristwatch. This watch right here. Like I say, again, it's always 5 after 6. Unless I get bored at looking at 5 after 6, then I change it. This watch serves no function, does it? None. If the time's not going to be right, and I still have to get out my cell phone and look and see what time it is, it serves no function. So why do I keep it on my wrist all the time? You'll always see me with this on my wrist. The reason is because it has a symbolic value to me. My dad gave me this watch the day that he died. My watch, I stopped by their house, and the battery on my watch had gone down, and I said something about it, and my dad said, "Oh, get this one out of the bureau. I will not be needing it." And 12 hours later, less than that, my dad was gone. So this watch is important to me because it has value, sentimental. Okay, from a sentimental perspective, it has incredible value. It's the last gift my dad ever gave me, and so I keep it, and I hold it close. Now, is that rational? Does it make sense? I took it to Soulburgers a couple of years ago to get them to send it back to the factory to see if they could fix it, because it did work. It worked for a long time, and then all of a sudden it broke. It's a dive watch, so you have to, they have to change gaskets and everything, so it has to be done by a professional. And I thought that that was all that was wrong with it. So I took it up there, and they looked at it, and they said, "No, it's not the battery. The structure is broken. There's something inside of it that's broken, that's worn out, that's not working." And so I had them send it back to the factory, and they called and said, "Okay, your watch is back." It was several months. "Your watch is back," and I just couldn't wait to get up there to Soulburgers to pick up my watch, and the guy just kind of flopped it down. He's like, "Couldn't be fixed." And without even thinking, I didn't even react consciously. Just instantly, these big alligator tears started pouring out of my eyes, and I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute! What? It has to be fixed. You can't not. It has to be fixed." And he said, "Look! I have a lot more dive watches here. Look at this one. It has more bells and whistles than that one. It'll do this and it'll do that, and it's got this warning and that." And I'm like, "I want this one fixed." And he said, "Ma'am, it would probably cost more to fix that watch. If it could be fixed, then it's actually worth." Um, and I'm like, "I don't care. If I could fix this watch, it means more to me than all of these watches that you have in your cabinet." And again, he looked quite perplexed, but then I told him why, and he understood then. But just from a functionalist, rational place, it made no sense to him for me to pay more to fix this watch than a new, better watch would even cost. So that is the difference in functionalism and symbolic interactionism. Um, and uh, the most important thing is, again, sometimes symbolic interactionism, it's just not rational. Now, functionalism seems kind of, I don't know, a little bit removed from feelings. But again, I wouldn't hesitate taking my clock down off my wall in my classroom and throwing it away and getting another one, because all I need it for is function. I just need it to provide time for me. I hope that makes sense. The other thing is, um, with symbolic interaction, in symbolic interactionism and functionalism, um, it defines how we see relationships. I could sit here and tell you this long, long story about, Susie, who, um, 30 years old, and she finally found the love of her life, and they were going to get married, and they go home, and Susie introduces this guy to everyone, and they love him, um, and life is great, and they're starting to talk about and plan their wedding, and the guy asked for dad's hand in marriage, and he asked Susie's dad for her hand in marriage, and I could build up this long story about these two people that found each other against all odds, and then I could continue to tell the story, and you're just falling in love with Susie and George, and their struggles, and how they overcame things. And then I could say that all of a sudden mom got where she didn't want this marriage to happen. She was against it. And after lots of arguing with her mom and Susie, mom finally had to disclose that she had had a child years before that she had put up for adoption, and nobody ever knew this. Her dad never even knew it. And of all the people in the world to fall in love with, Susie fell in love with her half brother. And now y'all are going, ooh, ick, yuck, that's awful. But let me ask you this. From a functionalist perspective, has anything changed about Susie and George? No. They're still Susie and they're still George. When the disclosure came out, it's not like, Susie grew a horn and George grew ears, or, they just suddenly became gross and horrible people. Nothing changed about Susie and George. They stayed Susie and George. But what did change was the label that you added. You added a label that said sibling, and siblings don't do that, right? So again, function and symbolic interactionism. We could say, okay, well, functionally, from this genetic scientific perspective, what if Susie and George both agreed to not have children, and they're going to do what they need to not have children? Would it be okay then? But you're still like, ooh, ew, that just kind of makes my stomach a little squeamish. And because again, symbolic interactionism has defined our values, and it has defined our expectations. So, two opposite ends of the spectrum. We see symbolic interactionism is a little bit more Comptonian oriented, and functionalism tends to be a little bit more Spencer oriented, where, hey, look, you just cut your losses and you go. Now let's take a quick look and talk about conflict theory. Conflict theory comes in, and what conflict theory says is that there are those that are powerful, that have control. Either they have time, they have money, or they have power, or they have influence. Whatever they have it, and they want to keep it. And they don't mind using their power or their influence or their money to make sure that people that are disenfranchised stay disenfranchised. They don't want to give up their power no matter what. And so that's what they do, and that's what they strive to do, and they're determined to do is, I'm not going to give up this power no matter what. So they use it in some kind of negative ways. So this is, we call this perpetuation of more of the same. Perpetuation of more of the same, which means I have power, I'm going to keep my power, you are disenfranchised, and I'm going to make sure you stay disenfranchised. There's nothing that you can do that is going to improve your status in this life, because I'm going to use my status to make sure you stay put. So 3 different theories. There are, over on my bookshelf, there are books that have literally hundreds of different theories. But most all of these theories come from these 3 basic theories. You can talk about feminism. And feminism is kind of a derivative of conflict theory. Feminism says that men have used their power to make sure that women don't get any say. They make laws for, that women have had to fight to be able to get to vote, trying to get equal pay, equal wages, and even though women are the ones that are off work giving birth, if they take off work, there's consequences, even though the laws say, oh no, you have your maternity leave, and when you come back, everything is supposed to be as it was. But we know in theory that it doesn't always work out that way, because we have male bosses usually. So that is kind of a derivative of conflict theory. The civil rights movement is built on the conflict theory, the idea that it is white legislators and white senators that had the power, and how hard and how difficult it was for Black men to be able to achieve status and to be able to achieve the same rights, because that the group that had the power, they don't want to share it. So conflict theory, we'll talk a little bit more about conflict theory in just a moment, but I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to read those slides and look at everything that I have written on them, because we will continue to visit this again and again and again. So thanks.